You probably already know that European heraldry got its start about 1,000 years ago, when knights started decorating the shields they used in battle. No one knows who first came up with the idea or where it started, but the thought is that it was a way for the knights to show who they were under all that armor. This is the Bayou Tapestry, which commemorates the Norman invasion of England in 1066. You can see that soldiers did decorate their shields at this time, but scholars think these designs are too early and not consistent enough to be any real system of heraldry the way we know it today. But very soon after this, knights started choosing consistent patterns and very quickly learned to pass them on to their sons to show their family connections and their rights to lands and titles. This tomb effigy may be the first recorded use of hereditary heraldry. It's the tomb of Geoffrey of Anju, who died in 1151, and shows lions on his shield, which are also shown on the tomb of his grandson, William of Longspay, who died in 1226. This was the time that heraldry as we know it first started to take hold. But knights didn't stop with their shields. They soon decorated their horses, pennants, and even their surcoats with their chosen emblems. This led to the name coat of arms, which comes from the practice of knights wearing their own designs. Here's a picture of two knights jousting in 1285, about 200 years after the Bayou Tapestry. By this time, there's no doubt that the knight on the left has a yellow shield with red stripes, and the knight on the right has a yellow shield with red X's. The artist here has gone out of his way to make the heraldry the main thing you see in the picture. It soon became the role of the heralds, the recorders and announcers of nobility, to remember all the chosen designs. Heralds might wear the designs and colors of their masters, but they collected and centralized knowledge of all the other coats of arms that their masters might encounter. And so from the heralds the study of heraldry was born. At first people just kept track of what they knew by creating documents called rolls of arms that had partial lists of coats of arms for one country or a small area. This, for instance, is a very early roll of arms called the Daring Roll. But eventually, after a few hundred years, governments created colleges of arms to control and record heraldry. But they didn't always start with complete records, and even afterwards, many early coats of arms went unrecorded, or the records were lost. So from about the 14th through the 19th century, starting with the simple geometric shapes that had been adopted by the early knights, heraldry really exploded. It became highly developed, rapidly evolving into more complicated designs, adding animals, faces, natural shapes, tools, and other devices. You sometimes hear that these designs had meanings, like a lion for courage and things like that, but there really was no consistency. Sometimes the meaning is obvious, but often it's not. In the early days, nobles chose their own designs, and very often they never wrote down why they chose them. A whole special jargon called blazon, based on Old French, was adopted to describe coats of arms in words instead of pictures. Colors, shapes, and animals all have Old French names in blazon, and it describes in rigid structure how they're supposed to be displayed on a shield. It was a lot cheaper to print books in words instead of pictures in those days, so most of the descriptions that survive of coats of arms are actually in words, not pictures. And to this day, blazon is still the official description of a coat of arms. In the early days of heraldry, it was common for nobles to vary their family design, either just for a while or sometimes permanently. The nobles seem to have chosen different designs for different reasons, usually pretty close to their original coat of arms, but sometimes they would identify themselves as individuals with slight variations, or sometimes they would use different variations for different purposes at different times. For instance, the Scottish de Vaux shield that we'll see again later was sometimes used in other variations by specific de Vaux barons in the 1200s and 1300s. But as the rules got stricter, the original design would be passed along upon the death of a father to his oldest son, and junior sons would then use other variations, and in time the rules were created for this whole process called cadency. A lot of these variations have survived, and because of this you can find many old records that show slightly different colors or designs of the same coat of arms for the same or related family lines. You also sometimes see different coats of arms for the same family shown in stained glass or stone around the different countries where they lived. These can be very close to the original, but sometimes slightly different. In later centuries also, the original shield designs were embellished with supporters, helmets, crests, mantling, and mottos, all with their own rules and restrictions. These were only added over time, slowly. The original designs were just the coat of arms on the shield, and then all of these other embellishments were added over time.
You've probably heard that the term family crest is wrong because the crest is really just the part on top of the helmet. But actually, even coat of arms really only refers to the shield. This whole device, with the supporters, the mantling, and everything else included, is called a heraldic achievement. I'll continue to call it a coat of arms for simplicity.
When both their father and mother came from important families, men were allowed to marshal their arms, or adopt a pattern that combined several original designs, to show their important connections. You could adopt a combination of 2 arms, or 4, or even sometimes many more. When you wanted to show a lot of important connections, though, this could lead to some silly examples. The rules and practices of heraldry did vary between countries, but in many of them heraldry was eventually extended to include women, clergy, counties and cities, and even the wealthier non-noble citizens. European and British Isles heraldry became a symbol of special status and privilege that many people aspired to, and over time, many families and many names got coats of arms.